The title race is heating up, and let's have a little bit of a talk about the start of the South American leg for the WRC. It is the third edition of Itinerary del Paraguay and the second edition in the WRC. And the southern coastal, well, as coastal as you can get for a landlocked city of Encarnacion, will be hosting the event, and we have 60 entries showing up on the entry list. In the Rally 1 class, Elfyn Evans will be leading the way, with Sami Pairi and Taka Katsuta following close behind. Then it's Seb Ogier, Sebastian Ogier with Vincent Lunde alongside, and Oliver Solberg completing the Toyota rostrum. We've got the Hyundais for Adrian Formeau, Thierry Neuville, and a returning Hayden Padden. This will be his first gravel rally in the WRC since Rally GB and Rally New Zealand in the Rally 2 cars. 2019, 2022. His first one in the top flight since 2018 Rally Australia, I believe. He was meant to do 2019 Rally Australia and 2019 Rally Finland, but 2019 Australia was cancelled due to wildfire, and 2019 Finland he could not take part in due to a crash during the pre-event test. M Sport, who he was entered for at the time, have only brought two cars here for Josh McAlean and John Armstrong. In WRC2, Robert Vervege will be leading the rostrum, and will be hoping that a good performance here could potentially, I think, even mathematically seal the title for him, with some of his rivals having done more rallies or not competing for the remainder of the season for other reasons. Alejandro Cachon will be the second entry, and it'll be three manufacturers from the top three seeds, with Nikolai Gryajan being third, ahead of Johan Rossell, his teammate. After that, we have the leading local driver in Pels Aldevar, followed by Gus Greensmith, Diego Dominguez Jr., I believe that is there. Then we have Yuki Yamamoto for the Prince Sport, that is the sort of satellite Toyota entry. Taylor Gill is switching across to Tog Sport after having driven, this will be his third different car for 4 WRC2 starts. He only had funding for 3 and has managed to pick up funding to do a couple more, and Tog Sport is a brilliant outfit to have that with as well. In addition to that, we have Robert Jurgensen as the lead Fiesta, and I think even the sole Fiesta in the Rally 2 field for M Sport here. Then we have Andrea Lafaya. We're going into more of the local drivers here afterwards. We have then Marco Balasia, Alejandro Galanti, Miguel Zaldivar Jr., Gustavo Saba, Fabrizio Galanti, Augusto Bestard, Miguel Ortega, Miguel Zaldivar Sr., Franco Pappalardo, Sebastian Barcini. And then we're getting into some of the older cars here, because we've been talking about lots of Rally 2 machinery there, a couple of Lancias, but mostly Toyotas and Fabias, and then the sole Fiesta. Because then we have a Fabia Rally 2 Evo for Eugen Gotze, a Fabia R5 for Mateus Dominguez, then a Fabia RS Rally 2 brand new for Miguel Granados, with Mark Marty alongside. Miguel Maria Garcia has a Yaris Rally 2, and then we get a Polo. I'm trying to remember the last time we saw a Polo or a WRC round this season, because I don't think we've seen one for a while. Cesar Pedotti, the number 47, and the final WRC2 entrant on the list, I believe. In WRC3, we're led by Giovanni Rossi. It's an all-Fiesta field this time around. Then Eric Royer, Andre Martinez Renazalde, Nathaniel Brun, Naveen Puglia, and Dean Mascarenas, showing that we have 2 Indian entrants in this category. Then we have another local driver for Eduardo Castro rounding out the WRC3 entry lists. After that, we have a variety of drivers who were entered but not for any particular championship. Mauricio Gonzalez in a Fabia RS Rally 2, some old Rally 2 Evos for Sebastian Gonzalez and Francisco Delgado, Vlasa Pag Senior in a Fabia RS Rally 3 Fiesta for Jorge Martinez Rosaldi, and then we get into the Rally 4 field. In Peugeots, we have Ivan Vasomi and Gabriel Duarte. In a Lancia, we have Arturo Ortiz, and then the rest of the field is all 208 Rally 4s for Manuel Irala, Fabian Herrera, Hector Gonzalez, Martin Tomas, Miguel Franco, Pedro Lagrava, Raul Saran, Sergio Zaza, and Kevin Vasquez. And I think that's probably the entry list this year that I have fluffed up the least. As for the stages, it's one of the longer rallies this season at 357.64 special stage kilometres. Liaison distance of 588.93 kilometres, meaning it's just under even 1,000 kilometres covered for drivers this weekend. And we'll start off with what's the shakedown. It's Carmen da Pirana. This is part of what was stage 5 and 13 last year, being run in the opposite direction. It's the first couple of kilometres, being reversed. So it'll be a little bit familiar to drivers. And then we get into the stages proper on Friday morning. Cambireta is the first one, 24.65 kilometres. This was the opener last year. Some high-speed sections through some farmland, broken up with lower-speed sections, a bit twisty. It's why I use Indonesia from EA Sports WRC to demonstrate it, because some of the stages seem quite familiar then, especially if you end up with some downpour. Again, it is pretty much unchanged from last year. The main difference is that you extend out a section through some tighter, twistier farmland. I feel like that was originally intended to be part of the stage last year, and that adds on an extra 6 kilometers to the stage. Then we have Nueva Albarada, the second stage in each loop. 15.66 kilometers. It is actually shorter than last year's edition. It starts slightly further into last year's stage, and then we at about 15 kilometers, 14.5 kilometers a stage, we then turn right to the junction. That we I believe last year we turned left, and that takes us to the new finish. The third stage of each of the Friday loops is the Yerbateras test. This one was called Yerbatera last year. It was run in the same direction, however, a short loop that was about 1.5 kilometers into the test last year no longer exists. It is going to be slightly longer this year at 34.08 kilometers because we add on an extra 4 or 5 kilometers at the end of the test. Similar kind of makeup though, farmlands, some flat out blasts, some crests here and there, a little bit of jumping action as well, and some start-stop junctions. The fourth stage in each of the loops is the Autodromo Alfredo Shade test. This was here last year, and this is the one where Gus Greensmith's love affair with Skoda fell apart, because this is the where the rear assembly of the car fell off. It's a track stadium section with a foresty part in the middle of it. It can produce so much chaos, but it is a nice spectator-friendly area, especially if rain comes in like we saw last year. Can be absolutely spectacular. Saturday opens with the Bella Vista test, which is unchanged from last year. It's the same 21.25 kilometers. Technically, it's 0.1 of a kilometer shorter this year. I think we just lob a little bit off at the start and at the end. It again runs along the border with Argentina. It goes through some farmlands, quite twisty, can be quite undulating in places as well, with the maximum elevation change, I believe, being about 100 meters over the course of the stage. The Bella Vista Sur test follows, and that will be new to WRC competitors, but for local drivers, it will be familiar. It starts off in a sort of spectatory kind of arena where you go back and forth on yourself a couple of times before heading out down towards the Rio Parana, and crosses over a main road right near the border crossing as well. It's quite picturesque by the looks of things, and it is relatively flat, so expect some tight, twisty, slower sections here, as well as some beautiful helicopter shots. Stage 11 and 15 are the Hono tests. This was the Mission Jesuitica Trinidad test last year. I believe, does that mean that that was the power stage that went into the UNESCO Heritage Site? This is the one where I think Seb Ogier complained because a bit of rain hit right going into his run, flooded the stage, and as a result he did not take the power stage. We'll talk about that when we get to the 2025 recap. It is a fast blast, but if the going gets tough, the tough most certainly get going. Then we also have stages 12 and 16. Ending each major loop, it is the Trinidad test. This last year was the shakedown stage, the Trinidad shakedown stage. It was the first couple of kilometers reversed. But for local drivers, this stop-start, same kind of twisty action, is going to be largely familiar, though there is a bit of farmland that appears to be new for this edition. And that is between 3 kilometers and 8 kilometers of the stage. Often it goes to a more flat-out blast. Saturday's action will end with the Encarnacion Costanera test, a nice, spectator-friendly, super special along the coast in the city. It looks like it could be massively entertaining, and it looks like it's building on the kind of thing that we saw with the Saudi Super Specials last year. Sunday is going to be one of the longest Sundays in the season, with 5 different tests. The first of them is going to be the Encarnacion test. This has been in the Rally Trans Itapua test, or the rally that used to make up what became the Candidate Rally, what became Rally Paraguay. However, we then get into a nice kind of, again, spectator-friendly blast through the additional 4 kilometers at the end of this 10-kilometer test. You're going back on yourself quite a lot. Lots of back and forths. I could already hear some drivers denouncing it as a bit of a Mickey Mouse, but I think it's going to be entertaining again. You've got the main road, you've got the bridge over the Rio Cuartero, and yeah, it looks like it could be fantastic action. The other stage in the loop is the one that makes up the power stage that's repeated twice, and that is the Artigas test. That was in last year's edition, though it has actually seen a bit of a shake-up from last year's version. It joins in about 10 kilometers into last year's test, with a new section making up the first 2 kilometers of this year's test. It breaks off 1 kilometer before the end of last year's test and adds on an extra 7k. But there is a stage in between the two of them, which is the Artigas East test. This looks again a little bit spectator friendly, 8.44 kilometers. It's a bit of a kind of, in terms of elevation profile, it seems relatively flat, but it's a bit of an up and down. It's twisty, and it goes near an information point of the 2023 Teniente Julio Lopez, according to rallymaps.com. Now turning the clocks back 12 months, and it was Seb Ogier that won by 26.2 seconds over Elfyn Evans, with Thierry Neuville a further second behind in third, and a further 3.4 behind in fourth was Oit Tanak. This is, like I said, the one where poor Seb Ogier ended up with, as I bash my microphone, I do apologise for that, ended up with the worst of the conditions on the power stage and was complaining so much about it at the end of the test. Top 5 rounded out by Carlo Rompera, and the leading Rally 1 field rounded out by Sami Pyri. The rest of the top 10 were Rally 2 cars. Oliver Solberg winning in WRC2 from Johan Russell, then it was Nikolai Kraj and Fels Aldebar, and just outside of them, rounding out the top 5 in the Rally 2 class, was Robert Vervege. When it came to the Rally 3s, it went the way of Matteo Fontana from Giovanni Rossi, Eduardo Castro, and then behind them, George Vasilakis. And by the looks of things, the lead Puma was 29th place for Josh McAlean, thanks to Super Rally. So I guess the question is, who are ones to watch this time around? Even though we saw that hefty crash in Finland, Seb Ogier has to be one to watch. He loves these newer rallies. He loves the challenges of them, and he is still Seb Ogier. He may be a bit beaten, battered and bruised after that high-speed accident in Finland, but Finland was never one of his favourite rallies, so could see him do quite well here. At the same time, Elfyn Evans gave him a run for his money last year, and that Toyota Yaris is still running fantastically this time around. You'd be hard-pressed to bet against any of the Toyotas, really. Oliver Solberg won the Rally 2 class here last year. Sami Pyri has just come off the back of 2 consecutive wins. And Taka Katsuta earlier this year got 2 consecutive wins to open up his WRC win tally. And what's one of his best rallies? Oh, isn't it the Safari? So if we end up with a really tricky event, if we end up with a muddy and messy event, the 18 could end up being somebody who is relatively competitive here. I mean, he's competitive anyways, could get the odd stage win, but I'm talking contention for the win. Just, I wouldn't say I'd be surprised if the top 3 at the end of this rally was, I don't know, Evans, Katsuta, Ogier. As for Hyundai, I mean, Neuville has got good form here, got the podium last year, Formeau lost his gearbox. Hayden Paddon is an unknown quantity. However, where did his one WRC win come? You know, back in 2016, 10 years ago now, so we do dial the clocks back a little bit. I have a feeling, wasn't it that he bested Seb Ogier in Argentina? One of Ogier's strongest events? One that he never won, did he? But it was still one of the strongest ones for him. Yeah, I have a feeling that that's how he won. When it comes to the WRC2s, the Lanciers are here on a testing exercise, though the two drivers have run fantastically here before. Robert Vevej is probably the safest bet, and he is gunning for that title. He might end up being somebody who gets a podium rather than the win, but when you look at his rap sheet this year, he's won what, all but one WRC2 appearance so far, and even that one that he didn't win, he was still second. The Lanciers, it is going to be, like I said, a testing exercise. We saw Johan Russell have rotten luck in Latin America before when it came to mechanical breakdowns for the C3, so maybe the Ypsilon is improved in that area. But expect probably one of the Lanciers to DNF because it is essentially a glorified testing season for them. Outside of them, Zaldivar, Greensmith, Dominguez, they all sound like they could be shoo-ins. Heck, Balasia as well, if you want a bit more of a blast from the past in that way. And Taylor Gill has something to prove. He may try to compete against his TalkSport 2 teammate in Vevej. For Rally 3s, I don't really know. Rossi could be a good one to look at. Castro could be a good one to look at. Nathaniel Brune has been fighting for scratches over the previous few years. That one is probably the most open one for me. Anyways, folks, that's that for this video. As always, thanks so much for watching and joining. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And as always, until next time, bye-bye for now.